Hello, everybody. I hope everyone can see me better than I can see myself here. So please let me know. This is Donna, or just plain old Donna. I'm here today to talk to you about controlling the expenses for your rental properties. Yes, those darn rental properties. There's always something coming up with them, but we know that that is the way to create wealth. So everybody needs to have some. So looking at the expenses for the rental properties, the best way I think to keep the property or keep the expenses down is by keeping and having good tenants. Now, so with that being said, when you're screening a tenant, you have to be very careful on with your background checks and do a good job on their history. Don't ever call the first landlord and think that they're telling you the truth, because many times a landlord with a bad tenant is going to lie to you just to get them out of the house, because not very many people are going to accept a person if they have that bad a bad rental reference. I can tell you we sure aren't. So that's probably the main thing you need to do is make sure those landlords like them and ask certain questions, like if they had a lot of parties, did they get any notices sent to them, were they late, were they messy, did they play loud music? The list goes on and on. But those are the things that are that you need to pay attention to. Okay, so I hear that I look like a maybe spinach or a green drink, if you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I hope you can hear me okay. We'll just continue on, and besides that, you don't need to see my pretty face anyway, right? Okay, so with the tenants, one of the things that Dean mentioned in a training that he did here, I think last April or so, was about starting a good tenant program or a tenant rewards program. And we've decided to implement that in our business, and that is rewarding those tenants that do a good job. It keeps your tenants there. It makes the releasing less of a problem. They care about the house, because you want these people to treat that house like their own. You want them to love and cherish that place, instead of always say, oh, well, just call the landlord. Because a lot of times, especially when you create that relationship, you're going to have less of those little calls, because they're just going to fix those little things themselves. So some of the ideas about a good tenant program, or a good tenant program, would be to reward them with 6 months of no late rents. So if they're on time every month, then they get like a $25 gift card for a coffee shop or something like that. Another one could be we send out those gift cards if they have an exceptionally nice lawn and looks pretty. I've also used it if I need like inspections for a contractor or something needs to go into a property. I sent flowers to people before, depending on who the person is, of course. And all that kind of thing is really appreciated, and that way you build that good relationship. So you want them to appreciate you just as much as you appreciate them. So that's a really good thing to implement. So you could do something at 1 year, you could do something at the 6th month, of course, and then you could do something, a Christmas basket or a Thanksgiving basket. One of my girlfriends, her and her husband, they have a few rentals, and they give them a gift at Thanksgiving time, which is a very, very nice, but make sure you keep it in your budget too. You don't want to be over your budget. One of the other really top things as far as your rentals go is ongoing maintenance. I've seen it time and time again that people don't care about their rentals. They don't make the repairs. The house is dirty on the exterior. The things aren't kept nice. So it depends on what kind of landlord you want to be. We like all our properties to be nice, even if it is in a low income area, because if you appreciate that property, that tenant is going to appreciate that property. So ongoing maintenance is key to keeping your tenant happy, but keeping good repair of your property. So along with that, when you're signing your tenants up, when you're communication with your tenants, you need to make sure they know that if there is a leak, like under the sink or something, they need to notify you right away, because you don't want that to rot out the flooring or the subflooring or the cabinets or the back of the countertop or any of those things. So those type of issues need to be addressed rather quickly. You know, you don't want to wait a month before you address something like that. The other thing that's helpful with that part is to set up like a triage. I'm a nurse, remember that. So it comes from my nurse background, that you set up a triage where each type of repair has a classification of when it should be fixed by. So if you have gushing water, of course that's going to be a number 1. If there's no electricity, or the refrigerator goes out or the oven goes out, something major like that, then there's a certain time frame. But if it's a missing handle off of a cabinet, then of course you don't have to address that right away, but you need to get to it at one time, as soon as possible, because it's going to cause ongoing damage. Another thing is just the gutters being around I forgot what they're called. It's the things at the end of the gutters that push the water away from the house. I'm sorry. I'm not thinking right now. But because you don't want that water under your house. So just those basic things will keep and preserve the life of the house. Clean your roof off, put moss out on it. In our area, you would have to do that. Probably not in your area. Clean the gutters out, those type of things, because if the gutter fails or the roof fails, it's just going to make a bigger expense for you down the road, and it decreases the life of either the walls or that part of the house. So it's important that you do the ongoing maintenance. Another thing, if you're having outside vendors, always try to bargain with them. You know, one of my philosophies is I don't ever pay retail. So you got to negotiate that out. And I heard the other day, one of my little cohorts told me, can you guys hear me or not? I just got a message that says you can't hear me. Okay, thank you, Andy Sager. Okay, so where was I? Oh, with vendors. One of the things I heard the other day is just a simple line, and this was from Matt, just a simple line when you're talking to a vendor of saying, is that the lowest price you can give me? Something on that era. Just so they stop and think about it for a little bit, and maybe it's only $25 if they drop off the price, but at least that's $25 you saved. So don't be afraid to negotiate. It is your house, and you know, you need to save as much money as you can. You want that to cash flow as good as you can. So those things you need to make sure that you negotiate with those vendors and get the best deal you can. But you also want quality. You don't want something that's going to fall apart. The other thing that is can be really a money pit is on the turnovers. And turnovers to me is the process between tenant and tenant. So that time where you have to switch out one renter to get ready for another renter. Okay, so if you go in there like you're going to do a rehab and get it retail ready, then you're going to have an issue, because that's going to cost you $5,000–$6,000. Where if you just do a rent ready, it could probably be just within the amount that the tenant put up for the security deposit. So you don't want to paint all the walls. You only want to paint when you need it. And maybe there's one wall that's messed up, but the other 3 are fine. So good, make an accent wall. Always use the same paint in all your rentals. The same, we use it's called warm caramel, and then Swiss coffee for the ceiling, and then white trim is what we use in ours. And that way, no matter when it is, you always have that kind of paint, and you don't have to worry about the touch-up so much, because the touch-up is going to be just fine for the rental house. Most people are going to put a picture back over where there was holes anyway, so it's not that big of a deal, or behind the couch where the couch was rubbing on the walls. So you just have to look at it and get it rent ready. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be safe, it needs to be clean, and it needs to be quality, but it does not have to be perfect. That means there can be a screw hole in the wall, and that's going to be okay. Or, you know, maybe there's one blind, one slat missing in a blind or something like that. But you don't have to go in, repaint everything, new carpet, new flooring throughout, new lighting, etc. Because the list goes on, and before you know it, you're in it to $5,000–6,000, and there goes your budget for the year. So you got to control that. It just needs a quick turnover, and then move on and get the next tenant in there, because you're losing money. You can figure at least $20 a day for every day that thing's sitting empty. So get that thing rented again. Budgeting and strategies. So one thing you want to do with your properties is you want to forecast out what's going to happen. Where are you going to need money later? So you might have one that's half rent, and you might have one that is the roof is half life, or it may be 3 years left in that. So you're going to need a budget so that doesn't kill you once that comes due. So you have got to plan for what your strategies are going to be with ongoing repairs, future repairs. Now, we have a situation in our area right now where the city decided to change the direction, not only direction of the water, but new pumps. And so it has increased the pounds per pressure in the old galvanized pipes under these houses that are 20 years old, or excuse me, 100 years old. And so just here in the last 2 months, we've had 4 properties that have needed repiped underneath the house. That means all new plumbing for the fresh water. That gets expensive when you have to do that more than once, I can tell you. And we had 2 properties of our own that needed to be done. So I'm going to get back up here where I can see your comments. So it's very important to figure that out. Hopefully, we've decided that we're using a product called LVT for the flooring. It lasts longer. The quality of the carpet that you buy nowadays doesn't last 20 years like it used to. So sometimes if you get a rough tenant, it's only going to last that one, and then you're going to pay $3,500 again or something like that, depending on the square footage, of course. So you want to try to keep that cost down, and the LVT is a waterproof, like vinyl, looks like wood that you put in the floors. Kind of looks like Pergo, but it's not. It's way better than Pergo. Plus, it's a lot more forgiving. It doesn't scratch up and stuff. So that's what we've been using. It's a little bit more expensive, but really not a whole lot. So that's what we're using there. So find products, they're all the same, and get the best deal, of course, that you can get on them. Another thing that we did recently is I shopped around for insurance. We'd had insurance on our houses for the last 6 years. And I had a few other issues, so I just thought I would shop around. And we're averaging $100 to $150 less per house was going with the new company. And yes, it is a little bit painful to get that switched over, but you're talking one of our LLCs has 21 properties. That's a chunk of change that you can definitely use somewhere else. Another little thing you can do, you'll have to check your area, but in our area, if a low-income person, like a HUD tenant, if they require for HUD, they can go to the public utility district and sign up for windows in the house. And then, because they are low income, the owner gets a discount when they go to replace the windows. So you could replace all the windows in a 1,000-foot square house for about $1,000, which is pretty inexpensive when you figure. I think our last flip was about $8,000 to replace windows. So that's a good savings to the owner. And all you have to do is get them to fill out the form and turn it in. Now, this could be another one of those times that you give them a gift card to pay them back or say thank you. So always keep that in mind of nurturing that relationship with those tenants. Now, this one isn't controlling expenses, but it is increasing your profitability. So right now, we all know the market's hot. Rent prices are going up through the roof. it is definitely time to look at your rents and see if there's room for you to increase. We just increased some, only $25. And then in 6 months, we'll do another $25. But that definitely brings up our bottom line. And along with that is with attrition. Anytime a tenant moves out, at that point in time, you really need to check and see if you have room for more. We have been consistently doing that since the first of the year. For example, we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house that was renting for $800 a month. It is renting for $900 a month now. We have another one that was $925. It is now $1,050. So this is the opportunity right now, especially with attrition, that you can raise the rents and not, hurt anybody. But of course, you have to worry about and think about those low-income people, especially. Hope this doesn't offend anyone, but with the elderly, if they're in there, it's an older person and they're just on SSI and they don't have much money, you might want to think about not doing quite, not quite so hard, or slowly increase their rent so that they can, kind of tolerate that, because they are on a fixed income. And I don't know about you, but I like those tenants. So just keep them in mind. Maybe the nurse and me coming out, I don't know. Okay, let me get a drink. Go Hawks. Sorry. Anyway, one of the biggest complaints I hear from the owners is that we're overcharging for the ongoing maintenance. And so please, if you have your own maintenance crew like we do, keep your prices reasonable, because they could go somewhere else and you want the business if you're going to be managing other people's properties. So those are some pretty good strategies that there are for controlling costs on your rentals. But the longer you can, the longer you can keep one tenant in your house, the better it's going to be for you. We have some tenants that have been with us since we started. So this is 10 years now, and they've been in this house the same time. We've made a couple improvements that they've requested, but really they haven't really requested anything too much. Rug repairs, some new blinds, just some basic things. But but that is really the best way to keep those units full. You want the lowest vacancy rate you can have, because you miss 2 or 3 rents. If say you have 12 properties and there's 2 or 3 or 4 empty, that could be up to $2,000 that you're not collecting, and that's going to hurt you. So other things too, I made a whole bunch of notes here. Another thing a lot of people, there's a controversy between allowing pets and not allowing pets. We do a pet fee. It is not a deposit, and that way we can use that money too towards the repairs of that house when they move out. And not saying that all pet owners are terrible, but if you get a hold of a bad one, it can be pretty extensive. We had one not that long ago. We did inspections on the house. Everything looked pretty good, not too bad, but pretty good. Well, then they moved out and they had area rugs. Always pick up the area rugs and look, because their dogs had chewed through the brand new carpet when they moved into the subflooring, which we had to make a repair to the floor before we could even put new carpet back on it. It was $3,800 to replace the flooring in that house, and it was all saturated with pee and the whole thing. So definitely do some checkups on them. What we like to do is we find out if they have pets. Especially if we don't know they have pets, we're going to go in there and do an inspection. We've started where we're inspecting every 6 months so that we can keep a better handle on the repairs needed in the house. And then if we see something that's really bad that we don't like, ongoing damage or whatever, then we just ask them to leave at that time. So there's just lots of ways. And rentals can be really expensive if you don't manage the maintenance and everything else that goes with it. So I'd like to answer some questions. So how much do we charge for our pet fee? We are now charging $600 per pet fee. It was $300, and then just through local networking, I found out that everybody else in town is $800. So we went with $600, especially if it's a bigger animal. We've even had a $1,000 pet fee, and they absolutely do not get that back. So, but you know, a lot of pet owners, they can't find a property that will accept a pet, and so they're willing to pay that high fee to have their pets with them, which is okay. We have some owners that really like bigger dogs, and some that only want a cat, and some that hate cats and they only want a little dog. So it just depends upon your owner too. Now we don't really like pets, but sometimes you have to allow them. Your property is going to sit vacant a lot longer if you don't allow pets. Proven fact. Okay. If you don't want the hassle of a tainted for life property, every 3 months is better inspection. That is the time it takes to start a grow up. Ah, very good. Yes, you are very right. The grow operations do happen. You know, it's legal out here in Washington. So we did have a case of that not that long ago. They moved in, I believe it was in September, and by February they had ripped out all the flooring, all the closets in the lower floor of the house. They had altered the heating and ventilation system. They had removed doors and installed doors where there weren't supposed to be any. And they totally did this to a downstairs, the entire downstairs of one of our houses. Needless to say, just that part of the cleanup was $3 grand. Gina would like to know, do you require renter's insurance? Sorry if you already addressed this. No, we haven't addressed it, and yes, we do. We have our tenants sign that they are getting renter's insurance, and they know that it's required. Do they all do it? We haven't ever enforced them bringing in a policy, but they do sign that they are getting a policy or have a policy, yes. So one of the other things that we're starting to do to increase money for the rentals is we're including lawn care. And so we're upping the rents a little bit to cover that lawn care. So when we rent the houses out, the lawn care is included in the rent. This not only allows us to employ another person or so, but it gets us on the property to see what's going on. Because if this house here was kind of back where you can't see it from the road, if we would have had somebody out there mowing the lawn, somebody would have known what was going on. So for me, that's probably one of the main reasons why. It does make your rents higher, but the other thing is your properties look better because you hear it all the time. Their lawnmower is broken, so they can't mow the lawn. Well, it's your property that's right there in town. Everybody drives by it, and I personally don't want everybody seeing my property there and thinking it's terrible. So that's part of the reason why we started it too. But it definitely gets you back on the property. And like you said, you have to get up there tainted for life every 3 months, you bet. We do inspection in 30 days and then in 6 months, but we'll have to look at the 3-month thing. I can't believe I look like green spaghetti, but that's okay. All righty. Okay, some owners, and it kind of depends on what your philosophy is, but you include the utilities with your rent. So then again, the rent would be a little bit higher, but it's justified because you're including the utilities, or the water, sewer, garbage anyway. In our area, and most people I've talked to, water, sewer, garbage, if the tenant fails to pay, that's attached to the house, and the owner has to pay it before they would turn the services on again. So a lot of times we'll include the water, sewer, garbage, especially in a lower income area or an area where the deposit's extremely high, because one of our cities is $360 deposit to even get to sign the paperwork. So The only deal with you're going to have the water sewer garbage on there, you have to make sure that they're not overusing the water. So there again, you need to do your drive-bys and see if they have swimming pools in the backyard. Is the neighbor's hose hooked up to yours, or what is going on with that property? One of the best things you can do for your property is pay attention to it. Have somebody driving by. We do monthly drive-bys. That's not an additional charge to the owners. We have to pay for whoever drives by, but we don't charge the owners for that. But that gets you, that way you can pay attention to see what's going on. And the more you drive around, the more you know what that house usually looks like. So if you're driving by and things are great, and then the next time you go by 30 days later, there's blankets on all the windows, including the little half moon on the door, something's up in there, and you better get in there. And so we watch for all that kinds of stuff, or extra cars, or extra people. Are they dealing drugs? How's the traffic? Owning rentals is a lot of work. Don't let anybody fool you, but it can be very lucrative, especially since that is the best way to grow your wealth. I would advise everybody to have a few rentals, especially as you start thinking about retiring or whatever. I have one friend that he has been buying rentals, and he has bought one for each one of his children. When he did this, they were 2 and 3. So by the time his thought process was, by the time the children are of college age, the house will be paid for and he can sell it, and that'll pay for their tuition, pay for their college. So I thought that was a pretty good idea of him. Does anybody have any questions for me? Let's see. Let me see what else I can find here. I wanted to get back to a little bit on the owners with complaining of high expenses every month. And if you're not managing your own, you're probably more than likely having somebody else do it, right? So watch your monthly statement. So for example, we took over a complex, and because of high expenses, and they thought that they were being overcharged for a lot of things. And so when we got to look at his statements and go through the details, we noticed that every 2 weeks he had the same plumbing charge in the same unit, fixing supposedly the same thing. It wasn't a huge amount of money. It was only $56.50 every 2 weeks. So that's $100 and something a month. So he finally caught on, but he had them managing he had 24 units. He had them managing them for over 2 years. So he lost quite a bit of money. And when he finally paid attention, I think, because I think that a lot of times when people get real busy, they don't really pay attention down to the nuts and bolts. They look at the global picture, but they don't look at the nuts and bolts. And once he finally did that, he realized that he was paying thousands of dollars out every month on these little teeny charges that they were putting in there with no evidence of even doing. Sheetrock repairs that were so bad, my grandson could have done it. The other thing for you people that are having properties that are managed away from your area is have them send you pictures, before and after pictures of whatever this repair was, and set a limit on how much they can do a repair without notifying you. $250 is a pretty good limit, because that'll do pretty much everything from changing out a toilet. So that way you kind of are a little bit more involved, and they have to call you. Even though if you're going to say yes anyway, at least you know what's going on. You're not surprised when you get that monthly statement. Let's see. Anybody have any questions for me? All right, well, guys, I guess if you don't have any questions, this was short and sweet. I do appreciate you being here tonight, and I'm sorry I'm green. So everybody have a great evening, and hopefully I'll see you again in another 4 or 5 weeks. Thanks. Bye.